Hi, I'm Justin,
Hi,
Hi,
Justin.
Justin.
and I am a father.
Hi, I'm Kevin.
Hi, Kevin.
Hi. And I'm a father.
My name is Peter,
Hey,
Hi,
Peter.
Peter.
and I'm a father.
Awesome. So, welcome back to another episode of Father Anonymous. I believe this is episode 5. 5, yes. Thank you, Justin, for the confirmation. As you can see, I once again am not in my typical spot in my office. I've recorded more episodes out of my office than I have. I think we've recorded, one episode, right, Justin?
You have
Actually,
one
no,
of our 4 is recorded in your office.
Yeah. So,
So where are you at
I like,
now?
yeah, so I'm just outside Manchester in the United Kingdom, as Pete will say. He does
Yep.
not live in Manchester. As much as that we'll go into. So yeah, visiting my good buddy Pete on holiday. Little background on us: we met in Italy while both of us worked for NATO. And so it's good time. Happy to finally be here in his home visiting. We've had quite pleasant time thus far.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a while since we've seen each
Yeah,
other,
it's
but
been about 3 years since
Yeah.
we've seen each other.
So, Pete, you're also
um,
armed services. Where are you from?
I'm now retired. I retired
Mhm.
2.5 years ago after 23 years.
Awesome.
Yeah. So just real fast, little introduction for Pete. So Pete has lived quite a full life. He's a 23-year veteran
Yep.
of Her Majesty's Army. And I say Her Majesty because he served under the Queen and not the King.
Yeah.
He has been a professional for a number of years. He's currently a logistics manager and ships things all over the world. He's an author of 2 children's books, right? And he's a father to 4 kids.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
So, trying to make sure I had all the numbers right.
How old are they? 4.
So-
That's quite a few.
Yeah, so my oldest is 27,
That's how old I am.
and my youngest, she is 6 in September.
Okay. Wow, you got
And
quite
the
the
other-
range.
I have the other one is 20, and the other one is coming up to 16.
Awesome.
So, before we get more into, we need to start with the kids if you want. So, we were talking a bit about this the other night. So, Pete's been married quite a number of times.
Yeah, no fault of my own, by the way. But yes.
And something I don't think I've actually asked you before is each kid with a different mother, or
Yes, they are. All 3 of them are based down in Kent. Except my oldest boy, who actually only moved up to this area about 3 years ago. So
Okay.
he's about 1.5 miles, 2 miles away from here.
Oh, that's nice. So something that was kind of like my first question, right? So it ties even in with just like all of us have served in a military of one kind or another. Like so, Justin is in the United States Air Force. So same military as me, in the United States, but different branch. And I know you've served with people in all of the American branches.
Yeah.
But one struggle kind of is being gone a lot as dads in the military, with kids. And I know you joined later in life, so your daughter was born before your entry to service. Had you already joined the service before you had split with your first wife, or
So my first wife, we was married back in 94, 95.
that's the year I was born.
So yeah, so back in about 94, 95, and then I joined the army in 1997. So, but we'd already split by then because different job that I had back then. So we'd already split before I joined the army.
So that kind of just ties into like my first question. It was more like what were the challenges and how did you deal with being like a father from afar? right? Because even before you all had split, right? Yeah, your daughter was born.
Yeah.
And you were working in Canada.
I was, yeah.
Yeah. So like, how was that? Just how'd you deal with just being apart from your daughter for so long?
It's hard. It's one. I think it's one of the hardest things there is, because no matter whether it's your first child, second child, third child, being away from them is probably one of the hardest things there is, because you do not see them grow up as you would as if you was a permanent father figure in their life, being with them. You're missing out on teething, how to feed them, what they're doing, their first steps. It's one of the hardest things, and it's emotion. It's quite emotional, because you've got your partner on the other side looking at you, going, "Oh my God, she's taken her first step. She's done this," and you've gone, "I've missed every single bit of that." But we understand that when we join something like a service, it's one of the things that we're going to miss out on. If we can get back in time and take a little bit of time back with them, but it's just very hard. And it's very emotional for guys, and it's emotional for the mothers as well, because they would rather you be there to go through it with them.
Yeah, I say it's like I've talked about this before. That's like the big reason why I decided to leave the service now.
Yeah.
When I did it 10 years, just I've seen too many friends or mentors, the higher ranks, who just missed every birthday for their kids.
Yeah,
that's just something I was trying to avoid and stuff. But was there any tips or tricks to help that you did? Because like you started raising your daughter in it's like our generation, right? It's like I'm about to be 29. And so that you didn't have all the tools to your disposal that like me and Justin have today, right? So we have cell phones and FaceTime and email, just this huge bucket
E-Blueies.
Sorry?
E-Blueies.
I don't know what that is.
See, that there's this complete generation gap. I mean, when I was serving, we was Iraq back then. So everything that we had to do was e-blueies. So it's you either write a letter home or you do what you call a teletext e-bluey.
I don't think that's a generational gap. I think that's like a American to British gap.
Well, it's one of those things where you sit and type it. You type everything and then you send it off. And as soon as you hit like a send, it goes straight to we had like a military post office. It hit the military post office. It printed the letter out straight away. That letter then was automatically then sent straight to your family.
Oh, that's cool.
And it was called an e-bluey. So that was your only correspondence to family, and a 5-minute phone call a week.
Wow,
that was it.
That's hard.
Yeah, I'll say even on my first appointment, I had cell phone coverage.
Yeah,
and I just had my phone. T-Mobile was there, and so I could call my wife like literally when I came off my shift every day. We sent some email correspondence too, but it was primarily as soon as I got back to my rack, I grab my phone and call my wife, just ask her how it was.
Yeah, I mean, for the Air Force, our deployments, I don't even know if our deployments can be considered deployments. Like some of them, you're basically in a hotel room with like access to a personal laptop and all sorts of things. So it's such a different time. Like I struggle with getting out to the garage for an hour to be able to record this, being away from the girls for that long. I couldn't imagine being gone from them for months or a year at a time. They're trying to send me to Korea right now, and like I'm at a point in my daughter's life where she's 10 months old, and if I were to leave in 6 months, she'd just be a little bit over a year old. And to leave her for like almost as long as she's been alive, it's hard to imagine doing that. I probably won't be doing that at the moment, but we'll get into that another time.
Yeah,
man. So e-blueies.
And the thing is, the worst of it is like this is like obviously when we first ever went. This is 2003 when we went to Iraq. For the first 6 weeks, any emails or any e-blueies that we sent out were being sent out. They were allowed to, but we couldn't get any back because all our mail was being held up for us. So when we did eventually was allowed to have our mail, we're getting we're getting mail that's probably 20 letters at once. And over the last 6 weeks, because then we wasn't allowed to make phone calls, wasn't allowed to talk to family, nobody couldn't do nothing.
Wow, man. Yeah, I don't know if I feel like the U.S. didn't call them e-buoys.
We probably have another name for them.
Probably have the name for them. I don't know what that is. I don't think it was email. I know most people just would correspond via, normal written mail back then. I still, like, my dad, served around the same time as you. He served the 80s to 80, 81. Joined the Air Force in the 80s and retired in like the year 2000, right before 9/11.
Yeah.
But it's Afghanistan, Desert Storm, Desert Shield.
Yeah, Gulf War.
The Gulf War time. And they'd stay at some nice hotel in Egypt, and then they'd fly to somewhere in Germany, and again stay in another 5-star hotel in Germany, and fly back to Kuwait or stay in a 5-star hotel, and so very different experience.
I mean, the thing is, RRAF are exactly the same. Wherever they go, they stay in hotels.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, they do. They'll land somewhere, and then they'll go they'll just go and stay in a hotel.
Say every country's Air Force is just better.
Yeah.
It's like staying in hotels.
So what branch was it? How do branches work with?
So like the U.S., you have your Navy, the Royal Marine.
Oh yeah, so we have like obviously got the British Army, which was so many different versions of the British Army. Royal Air Force. So when we're in the Army, we go somewhere, we stay one of the worst places there is. Air Force, they stay in the most amazing places there is. And when it comes down to the Navy, which it used to make me laugh really, because when the Navy, we used to get the Navy in Iraq, in the middle of the desert, and we used to sit there and go, but there's no ships here, but there's Navy. It's just
We go everywhere.
just that, and they're there.
Yeah, I've had the pleasure to serve with lots of British Royal Navy. They've always been a hoot.
Yeah,
your ships are a lot nicer than ours.
No, but the thing is, yours are bigger.
Ours are bigger, but y'all have like actual dining sets and carpet, and people get their own room. If in ours, like, they're bigger, but it's like a prison. We're like spiced up in like a coffin rack on a wall. It's like naked steel throughout the whole ship. We had some like OR like 5s and 6 on our last deployment in the Black Sea, who couldn't believe that they were made to like sit in the galley with like the rest of us peasants.
The only thing I actually feel sorry for you guys that are serving US is that when you go away, you deploy for a year.
Yeah.
We don't. We deploy for 6 months.
I would say the Navy does. Army, Marines typically. The Air Force, the most they deploy is typically 6 months.
Yeah,
if that.
I have a buddy who just went on a 3-month deployment. Like, he was gone for 3 months and came back and like got a ribbon and shit.
Yeah,
It's like, good for
that's
you.
like a long.
That's just a little vacation.
Yeah, it's literally like a little work trip.
Yeah.
Something crazy.
See, I could handle a month or two. Like, spending so much time apart from your little ones as they grew up, how has that impacted like your relationship with like the older ones? Or have you guys been able to develop closer relationships as they've gotten older, or has it like affected you guys in any kind of negative ways?
I think what the hardest part of it is it's, and as fathers, we have it hard because we're like second best, and we are known as class as second best. Ladies are known as the mothers and the carers and the givers and everything like that. Yet there are fathers that are carers and there are givers, and there are single fathers and there are single fathers, and it doesn't matter whether they're single; they're still classed as being the second person. So with mine, 2 of my marriages broke up because of me being away. And being away in the forces and losing, because when you're away and they decide to move while you're away, you lose the detachment of being able to try and find out and to be able to talk to them. There's so much going on within the homestead itself, that either the mother is either trying to push the child away from you, or is not giving you that time to be able to speak to them. So my oldest, she's 27. She was quite lucky because though I was in the army, I joined the army well after she was born, and me and my mother had already split up. It took years and years and years before we even really started talking properly, because no matter how many times I was able to try and get back, to try and get down to see them, things were very, very difficult because I was always away. I was always deployed. And then the thing we get then is you're never here. You're never here. And there's not much we can do. It's our job. We're doing what we can, the best we can. But it always seems to be that the child could end up very resentful against you because of you being away. Mm-hmm. And it's not all your fault. I mean, Kev's now not serving now, and he is now at 100% with his child, and his child will know that.
Also, it's the same now for like Esme, your youngest, you know, and that's like one of my other questions I had. Like, how do you see your role as dad like have changed over the years, right? So from your firstborn to now Esme, and obviously there's a big difference. You know, being the fact that you were away, you know, and you've been present for Esme's entire life.
I know, yeah, absolutely.
She was born in Italy, and that was like a job where your wife could be there with you, you know, and not deployed in the desert or you know, some other far off place. Yeah. So, what do you see the differences in either how you've attempted or are parenting? Like consciously, you're like, all right, I want to do this different, you know, than I did before.
I think it's because when like you said, that when Esme was born in Italy, I was able to be around her more. And even if I did go away, it was only for like about 2 or 3 weeks. It was short stints because we were working for NATO. We wasn't deployed for months and months and months at a time. So she knew that. And the good thing about it was all FaceTime. Everything, whenever I got 5 minutes, I was FaceTiming her, and she could see me. So the bond, I kept trying to keep the bond all the time. And if I couldn't speak to her, I could send a message, a video, and I know that her mum would then show her the video. So, and now, for the 2 years or so that I was still in before I got out, our bond is so much stronger than I've had with my previous relationships and my children. Though we are talking now, it's not as close as what I am with my daughter now. My daughter I have now, because I go home, I go to work, I come home, go to work, come home, go to work, and she sees me every single day. I'm not going away. I'm not doing anything. So the bond is like a lot better. And the wife makes sure that I keep that bond. And because she knows what I've previously gone through, and she understands what's happened previously.
Has Esme had any interactions with her siblings? I know, like the brother who I've met. Yep. Awesome. But has she met her other half sibling?
Yeah. So she met her last year. She met her older sister last year. It was one of those things. It was a bit awkward at first, but Esme took to her straight away. That's nice. And she just, and my daughter was like all over her and everything on that. And she sends her birthday presents and vice versa. And my youngest boy, when them two get together, they're inseparable.
Oh, that's awesome.
So and they treat her as if they are her actual sibling, and not like half brother, half sister. Yeah. They actually treat her like, well, she's the youngest, so they won't make it awkward for her.
That's nice. That's good. Yeah. Yes, I know sometimes in those situations, there's resentment or
jealousy.
Between jealousy.
Oh, yeah.
So that doesn't really bring the next topic at all. I was wondering if you touched on like how you grew up, right? So you're a child of the 70s.
I was a child of
Yeah.
the. Everyone says when Pete, you're a child of the '60s,
Yeah.
and I go, I was born at the end of '68. I never saw any of the '60s. So yeah, we're feral kids. We're X-Gen. We're people are terrified of us because of the way we were brought up. Oh, it was one of those things. My dad worked. He was ex-service. He was ex-PTI.
What's PTI?
Physical training instructor.
Okay.
So he was army champion, trampolining and all that. So he done all that.
Trampolining?
Yeah, so he done he done all the trampoline and everything. But he also was a PTI within the army.
I don't know
Like
what
gymnastics?
trampolining was.
Yeah, done gymnastics and stuff
Okay.
like that. So when he was serving,
You gotta remember, there's like a big difference between British English and American English, and so it's like, what are you saying?
Right, so you know the things you can bounce up and
Yeah,
down.
yeah.
That's the trampoline.
Yeah, I know that, but he did that like professionally.
Well, when he obviously done, like when you're in the services, you can either do boxing.
Yeah.
He done that as a gym. He was he was very physical.
Okay.
He was very physical, and he was a thick guy. He really, really was. But my parents split up when I was 2 years old. So there was my sister Donna, who was 1 year old. She's 1 year older than me, and then there's me, and then it was my youngest sister Colleen. But Colleen went with her mum. So I didn't know about that. I was way too young. Didn't know anything about that. So my dad done whatever work he could, and he was such a nice guy. And I lived all over the place. I lived in the States from the age of 10 to 13 because my dad had a job over there. And then we moved back to the UK. I think I was about, 16? I think it's one of those things when your dad sits you down and he goes, do you want a whiskey? At like the age of 16. And he goes, you're going to tell me something. And he goes, yeah, just let you know that your mum you are with now is not your mum. And you go, oh, okay. I wonder why she treated us a little bit different than thing. So, I didn't make anything of it. I just wanted to know what my mum was about.
That's I feel that's quite late to tell.
Yeah.
That's I mean, good on him for finally bringing it up. It's an awkward conversation for sure.
Yeah.
Years later, like, in the moment, not really processing, but any thoughts now looking back, like having waited so long to tell you, or is it just water on the bridge? You don't blame him?
No, I don't blame him at all. I think he was doing this as a father. He was doing this. He was trying to protect me and my sister. He was trying to protect us, but the only thing is that he did say to me, like, I know where your mum is. If you want to speak to her or anything like that, and you want to speak to your sister and everything, and my stepmom was the one that took it a little bit different because she didn't really want me to know. So she went the opposite way. When my dad wanted us to know, she didn't want me to know.
Gotcha.
So there was started eventually between us. There was animosity between us both. And it went on for, I think I left home when I was about 17 and a half.
Oh, wow. So not short after.
Yeah. I left home when I was about 17 and a half.
Interesting. I would say, think like it's wow.
But me and my dad were we were best of friends. Absolutely. He's one of those fathers, when you know your father, you can sit down and tell him the most stupidest thing and you think it's going to be but he would sit there and listen to it. He'd probably laugh at you and just call you something, but he would never he would never say why. He would just listen to you. But I loved him. He was my best friend.
I'll say that's much more, I would say, Justin's relationship with his dad. There's a very short age gap. I think 17
years.
16 years.
Yeah.
So
me and my dad are really close in age. He's 44, 45 right now, or will be 45. And so like he's got a son right now who's just about 4 years old. And like I've got a 5-year-old stepdaughter and a 10-month-old, so like we're both raising kids at the same time type deal. It's
Yeah.
a pretty interesting dynamic. But yeah, we were definitely close in that way where, like you said, I could be telling him just about anything and he may call me a couple names or just make fun of me a little bit, treat me more like a little brother sometimes, but I definitely love that
Yeah,
part of our relationship.
Yeah.
very contrary to my relationship with my dad. Like my dad is a bit older than you. I think he's about 66, 67, somewhere in there. Born in the the early 60s.
Yeah.
And so like when he had me, he had he was on the verge of retiring. So he left he retired from the Air Force when I was like 5 years old. So I have some memories of him being gone when I was like very, very young.
Yeah.
For I think my mom doesn't believe me that I remember, but I it's like a back of my head memory of him like being gone for like what felt like for a super, super long time. My mom says for the time period he was gone for maybe 2 or 3 weeks. It wasn't anything at all. He's like he did like an exercise, and that was like the last thing he did before retirement, and that was he hadn't done anything else since.
Yeah.
So she doesn't believe me that I remember it, but the being gone is something that does weigh on a kid. It's like you latch on and remember it, but I do have a good relationship with my dad, but it's much more father son respect. Love my dad, but definitely not my best friend, and he never really tried to be either. I would say, he's always gave me my own space, taught me a lot. It taught me to work on cars, go fishing, and I've always felt comfortable like talking to my dad about things, but in very much like a respect, I'm not your friend, I'm your dad.
Yeah, I think my dad was the same. He would put me in my place when I needed it.
Yeah.
And he would tell me, I said, don't care how big you are, but I'll put you in your place if I need to.
Yeah.
Like he used to say to me, I'll teach you how to fix cars. Didn't want nothing to do with that. But when my car went wrong once and I had to change a clutch plate on it, I got underneath. He said, "This is my Haynes manual. Off you go."
Yeah.
Underneath my car, Haynes manual. Yeah. An hour to take out that clutch plate. I thought, wow, I'm doing really good. 3.5 hours to put it back in. Because he didn't tell me, and he knew, and he was teaching me a lesson. He said, what you're supposed to do is chalk mark it so you know exactly how to put it back in. But he would watch me for 3.5 hours trying to put this thing back in the freezing cold weather.
My dad did the same thing to me. I've showed you pictures of my car. Oh, I have to show you now because it's almost fully restored now. Got new paint on it and everything. But he literally did the same thing as like once we got the car into the driveway, he went out and not Haynes, I forget the brand of parts manual, but it's like an automotive Bible. It's got like a million different cars in it. And it just like I have to flip to the year group that my car is, and it's a Ford, and it's right there, and it tells you then how to work on 99% of the car.
Haynes manual done that.
Yeah, awesome. And for me, being a child of the '90s, I'm very much, even at 16 when we were doing this, I'm like, Google's been out for a couple years now. like why are we looking through this old like we had to, it took us like weeks to find a parts manual for the car, and it was lucky we did, because there's very little on the car online. It's very rare car, but yeah, it's trying to flip through these pages, and they got these really, really small, terrible, like worse than IKEA diagrams on how to pull out a part, and then you hope you pull it out right without breaking it, and then figure out how to put it back. There's no instruction on how to put it back. It just is how to take it out.
See, that gets me when you look at things like YouTube.
Yeah.
Everything's on YouTube. If
Yeah.
you want to know how to fix something, you look on YouTube and everything. But I'll tell you what would be the funniest thing to see all the youngsters now. If you took away sat nav
Mm.
and then gave them a map, how many of them do you reckon read a map on a road map to get themselves somewhere? I was brought up on road maps.
Can you read a map, Justin?
I could read a map.
I was brought up on road maps going, Dad used to go, right, I'm going here. You have to tell me which road I have to turn off at. And I'm following it with my finger like that. Just following the road map.
Yeah.
And then flip 4 pages up to the next
yeah.
pages.
So my dad did the same thing. When I was like young, like I feel like I was probably like 8, 9 the first time he did it. Like he prepped me for weeks going on a camping trip. He's like, you're telling us every turn we make. And he's like, if you tell me the wrong turn, we're not going to end up at the right spot. And I'm like, it's a lot of pressure to put on a 9-year-old kid, you know? But it was so much fun. I really enjoyed it, you know, because when I was 9, 10, we didn't have GPS yet. I think people had them. But MapQuest was a big thing.
Yeah, yes, I remember that. Yeah.
You know, and so we would you could print out directions on MapQuest, but my dad wasn't a fan. My dad's a truck driver and has been forever. You know, it's when he got out of the Air Force is pretty much what he's done the entire time.
Yeah,
and he lives on maps. You know, he loves them. We have, I'm sure, still in our home, unless my mom has thrown them all out, I'm not sure, like a box full of maps for everywhere, all up and down California, like most of the entire West Coast.
Yeah.
And
you used to get it in the one big book, didn't you?
Yeah.
Like we have one that's called the European Atlas. So you just turn the pages and it takes you to each country.
Yeah.
You need to work your way around.
He had ones just for California. He had like this big spiral of binder, you know, and it was probably like, yeah, like, you know, it was a good size, and you kept flipping through it. And it was I didn't like it. I'd much rather like a fold out map, just because not every page was connected.
No, they're not supposed to be, because they're supposed to, like, you have one there, and when you get to the top of this page here where your road disappears, you then have to turn up 4 pages to get to the one that you need to for that road to then go on.
You know, and so it's like, oh, it'd say like go to page 94, and then it'd be like go to page 62. You know, so you're just like, yeah. So it definitely was something to do on road trips.
Yeah.
My dad, I'm lucky. My dad, for the whole entire life, before he passed away, he was only really out of my life 2 years, which was one when he went to Germany to work, and then one when he went for a year to America to work. Before then we moved over. But I was quite lucky that I had him for my entire life until he was 52. So I mean, it was one of those things. But yeah, it was a great man. He was always there, always there.
Did you have something, Justin? Or
last note on maps. When I got my first car when I was 18, so I was a little bit older. We got it down in Southern California in San Diego, and I lost my phone. I'm not going to get into the story of how I lost my phone, but I was in Tijuana in Mexico.
I'll tell you later, Pete.
And I lost my cell phone in Tijuana. And so I had to drive back from Southern California up to Northern California without a phone, without GPS. And I'm proud of myself that I made it back alive, just following the signs and everything. I'm still surprised to this day that like 17, 18-year-old
So you just followed the signs, not the map?
Yeah.
I didn't have a map.
That's pretty good going.
But I was just like, I got to go north, and I'm surprised I made it back home.
That's pretty good going, that is, if you're just following the road signs.
Yeah, that's not too bad.
I've been staring at this book here. I've been staring at this book. You wrote a couple children's books.
Yeah, I did.
How did that happen? Like,
I think it's because I was away from my kids. The first one was a totally different book. It was called Chem Cloud Environmentally Friendly.
Oh.
And so I thought of it. I was just out one day and I was just looking up at the clouds, and I just went, And I just thought, oh, I put a face on that. And I went, and then I thought, well, everything's on about the environment. No, let's make a chemical cloud and make it good. So, as in, when you talk about chemical clouds, no chemical clouds is good. However, in this one, he was like a big cloud coming out of a big chimney, and he got hit by a bolt of lightning with his friends, and he got hit. But when he came round, he said, "I don't want to do anything bad. I want to be good." So I have I think it was 3 or 4 stories in it. So he was teaching children how to be environmentally friendly, and the whole storybook with him, where he'd meet children, he'd talk to them, and then he'd tell them about things. I done one about the countryside, one about the sea, one about the jungle, and then about the Amazon rainforest. And I gave him all the information. Was like, I got all the information before I wrote each part, and then at the end, it gave the kids some questions to answer at the end of each story. So as they read it, as they read the story, at the end it would say, how many shellfish did you see at the bottom of the ocean and stuff like that. And it's just something for the kids to do. And it was just I saw a cloud, put a face on it, and it took me probably about 5 months to write it.
That's
That's
cute.
not very long at all. Yeah.
Mhm. And this one, Elgin the Little Troll.
Kevin, bring that
one day
close to the camera real quick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, for anyone interested, I'll make sure you do still sell these, yeah?
They should. You should be able to go online. You should be on Amazon, Barnes and Noble.
Yeah, we love
Yes.
getting our kids books, so we'll have to add it to our stacks of books. But what inspired this one?
Yeah, so this one took less to write. It took longer to publish than it did actually to write, because my publisher is Strategic Books, which is an American based in New York. So with this one, it's like I always wondered, everyone talks about fairies and stuff like that, and I thought, well, man, what about a troll? What lives at the bottom of your garden? So he's like turning 89 years old or something like that, but that's a child in troll years. So where you're only 4, he's really your age, but he's 89, and his mum's like about 400. So, but he's never been outside of his tree. So his mum said, yes, you can go out today. And he has this massive adventure, walking through gardens with grass that looks like the size of trees, and rocks that look like mountains, and ponds that look like oceans. So he has a massive adventure. And we're called Biggins. Yeah, and he's about that big, but we're called Biggins, and they've always been told, beware of the Biggins, and that's us. So, and eventually he bumps into one. So yeah, it was just sat down, and it took me, I think it took me about 2 months to write it, and then do all the illustrations. But it took longer to publish it than did anything else.
You did all the illustrations yourself.
I do, yeah.
Oh,
I've done a lot. I've done a lot of artwork when I was in school. I've done London Art School.
I would say I barely brushed on Pete's repertoire in the intro, because he's a man of many talents. You have, I think I saw your art portfolio binder out.
Yeah, I've got an art portfolio. Yeah.
I remember you showing me in the years past. You dabble in almost everything.
Yeah,
and you do it quite well.
I'm one of those things. I think it's because I got it off my dad, really, because my dad was an artist. He could paint and everything like that. He was a musician. He was an engineer. He was a builder, and I could do it. Could basically go along and do nearly everything that he could. I could do everything that he could. However, what I couldn't do was fix a car. So that was it, really. But yeah, I if I can do it, I will do it myself. I don't get anybody else in to do it. But if I can't, I'll make sure I get someone else in.
Have you always wanted to write a book, or was it just like that first time you're just looking up at the clouds, you're like, huh, this, I feel like this is an idea and I want to follow through with it.
But I think it's not just that. I think that I love letting children have something to see and read and
Yeah.
think. It's like, again, I came up with something else that I want to do. But the problem I have is that I don't have. You know, when you want somebody that has the same mindset as you got, you have, and you go, oh, right. So if I'm doing something, you've got to look at me as if to say, I know exactly what you want me to do here now. So I'm looking at doing another thing with puppets, two children's puppets, basically an old man and a young one, and basically they live in sheds in the gardens, but they only ever appear once a new shed has been built, so no one ever knows them. And then this is like I walk into a shed, and then this is where I want the video to be going. So I'm walking into a shed. So it was like doing a children's thing. We're going, have you ever been into a shed before? Come and have a look in my shed. These are all the tools I'm using. And then I hear a noise, and then I turn around and I'm going, what's that? And I can hear other noise moving. And eventually I see these two figures.
Yeah.
And they introduce themselves to me. But this is where I need that other person who's doing the videoing and everything to be able to understand what I'm doing, how the puppets talk, and how funny that I would ask them funny questions, and because they go, oh no, we've been around for like hundreds of thousands of years, since caves and stuff like that, but people don't usually get to see it. Children that only appear to the person who owns the shed. So, and I was going to get my wife to come in with me, and I'd run out and go, quick, can you see these? Can you see? And she will come in and go, I have no idea what you're looking at. What are you talking about? But they're plainly in sight right there. And she was going, no, I have no idea what you're doing, and just walk off. And then, but if I introduce my daughter to them, she could see them. But anybody that, if I'm introduced, but I'm going, she's going, don't understand it. Don't be silly. I walk off. But I've even written like 10 episodes of what I want to do. But I said to my wife, I said, I just need someone who's got the same mindset as me.
Yeah.
And just to go that say, teach them like, this is a mobile phone. Do you know what mobile phones are and everything like that? And they'd be just looking at it going, no idea. And just go through all the stuff because they're new to your shed.
Yeah.
They don't know what's out there.
It's such a cool idea. That'd be like really, really good for like a YouTube series.
That's what I wanted to do it for, a YouTube series. I've written it down. I've got it at work. It's on the computer. And
you built the shed.
I've got the shed. I've got 2 sheds, and I don't have a camera crew.
Oh, that's
super awesome though. You've got a very creative mind, I could tell.
It's just one of those things, you know. I just enjoy doing things like that, and that's I've always been like that, even at my younger, tender age of 54.
Do you feel, as you are now getting older, you know, you've expressed at some point, you and your current wife want to have, you know, a second kid?
Yes, we do.
Do you feel limitations, or there's things that you can't quite do as well now that you could have, you know, 20, 30 years ago? Or do you have any fears of like the puppet program, even, you know, doing it if you have to wait till 60, you know? I know I say this as you're like in better shape than I am, you know, but it's just something that just happens as we get older, you know.
I think, I mean, we know we're not looking at anything for at least nearly 3 years. The thing is, my wife followed me around for 10 years from Kenya, where I met her back in Kenya, and she followed me around. And then when I retired, I said to her, look, do what you want to do now. It's your turn. Do what you want to do. So she's in her 3rd year of university at the moment, and then I know that she wants to do another 2 years, and she wants to do continuation of what she's doing now, but she wants to do another 2 years. So, but we did speak about like having a baby next year, but then this has come up. So I think the only fear I think that I have is not that I won't be able to cope or my age or anything like that. I think I'll be so excited to have another one. I really will, and to bring somebody else into this planet that's revolving. That's it's in silly ways it is at the moment, but to bring another child, I think to give a child a life is something I wanted to do, and she wants it as well. I think the only fear that I have is, and it's inevitable for everybody, is that will I see the child grow up? How old will I be? Will I see them get married? Will I see this? I think that's the only fear I have. I mean, my daughter's is coming up to 6. In 10 years' time, she's 16, so I know inshallah, I'm still going then. But you can understand, like, if I have another one in 3 years' time, you are pushing the boundaries. But everyone says it doesn't make any difference how old you are. It does. It makes a massive amount of difference. Even if you're wealthy, it makes a massive amount of difference. That's what I feel. That's the only fear that I have, is not being able to see them grow up.
Yeah.
Understand that. Do you have any grandkids with your older kids?
Yes, I have 3.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, I have 3. Yeah, I have 2 girls and 1 boy.
So
I didn't know that.
My daughter Jodie, she's got 2 girls and 1 boy.
Oh.
So having those grandkids and little ones that are probably going to keep coming over the next 5-10 years or whatever, that doesn't scratch that itch of like having a little one. You want your own, like you just want one more.
I think it's me and the wife were sitting down looking at our videos on our phones the other day when Esme, when she was just literally a baby. And then Kev turns up here with his daughter, and we're like that. We're just going, yes, we really do. We really do want another one. And I would never deprive my wife of not having another one. And I think it's cruel to say no, no matter how that I might feel inside about my anxieties for when I get older. But I would never not let her have another one. I think that's wrong, and it's depriving someone of something that they really want.
You got people like what's his name?
De Niro.
De Niro. He was like 82, 83. He just had a kid, you know.
Yeah.
So I mean, he's gonna die in the next like 5 years. It's like
he could. He could. But
you know, it's but I mean, it's all to say, like, and we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, obviously, but you're in a much better place to have a kid than he is.
Yeah.
Even in the next 5 to 7 years.
Yeah.
You know, and in that time, just God, this chair is driving me mad. I don't know if it's my pants. I keep slipping.
I think it's just wearing his wrong pair of pants, because I haven't slipped once. I'm doing fine.
It's sorry. It's like
audio listeners love you to death, but Kevin is getting destroyed by this chair mentally and emotionally.
I can't. It's such a nice chair otherwise, you know. But yeah, I wouldn't worry so much, because like I even me at I'll be 29 next month. Something can happen just in an accident, and I'll miss out on all of Frank's life. So
I can't even remember that far back.
What were you doing at 29?
That was my just over 2 years in the army. Yeah. Yeah, just over 2 years in the army. Didn't join till I was 27, so
we didn't even touch on this much, besides the fact that like it was how me and Pete met, right? Good story. So me and Pete didn't meet really. Pete met my wife. So while we worked in relatively the same location, we worked on 2 separate bases, and without the interaction with my wife, probably never would have met.
No,
Honestly.
it's true. Yeah.
So I'll play the part of my wife, more or less.
Yeah.
So she or Pete was one of my wife's patients. And when my wife went to bring Pete back, Pete did a unique thing and changed his last name, and more or less made a new last name just altogether.
Completely.
That's very Kenyan sounding. And my wife is also Kenyan, and so she was really excited to meet a Kenyan. And when she called out the name and Pete stood up, she was understandably confused.
Why is a white Mzungu standing there with a Kenyan name?
Yeah. And then was like, oh hell nah, like this like British dude who like was stationed in Kenya and thought it was cool to take a Kenyan last name. Like what kind of like colonizing like rubbish is this?
Leave it alone. You just can't leave it alone.
Yeah. And she was pleasantly surprised and happy once they started talking, and she found out that he was married to a Kenyan, and she was like, "Oh, all right, this
makes sense.
This makes much more sense, much more acceptable." And Miriam does hair, yeah.
She was doing, she was doing hair.
And so she would do my wife's hair, and then through that whole process, we got invited over to dinner. Many times, and then once the first invitation was set, we just never left their house. We like it was like a second home to us. It was really really nice meeting both of them and their wife. They're super accepting and open to us. We would sit outside at the fire.
We got a house full now, haven't we? Without many people that was here.
Yeah.
With everybody here at the moment. Sleeping on sofas and
we lived at their house practically. Like one on the weekends we would just get absolutely hammered. Like,
and the thing is, it was one of those things. It had to happen in Italy because that's just it's Italy.
Yeah, we'd sit around his fire pit and just talk like all night long, and then obviously like in Italy they don't really care if you've had a drink or two. But we were having quite more than just a drink or two. And so it was really nice to just like be comfortable enough to just spend the night.
Absolutely.
It was just to the point where like if we were heading over to their house, we knew nine times out of 10 we were probably just gonna spend the night.
Brought a toothbrush and everything.
Oh yeah. To the point where Miriam would text us like, and she'd be, "What time are y'all coming?" Like not an invitation, like, "Oh, would you guys like to come over for dinner on Friday?" She'd be, "What time are you guys coming over on Friday?" Or she'd text us, "Oh, I made a bunch of food on Tuesday. Be at our house by 5." Not a hey, would you like to come over for dinner? It's like just I expect you to be here.
She's Kenyan, so she's actually quite forceful.
And eat
Kevin
the food
knows.
I made. Well, I know.
Yeah, I imagine that's how it would be if Kevin lived back close to home for us. Like we would probably be living at each other's houses, pretty much.
Yeah. And I think it's a good thing.
So, backstory: me and Justin have known each other since we were like 8 or 10 years old.
Did you go to school together?
We went to church together.
We were both homeschooled.
We were both homeschooled,
okay.
And so we did some classes together for a little bit, and some like more after school programs. But for like a while, especially like in high school, we pretty much lived at each other's homes. He'd either be spending the weekend at my house, or I spent the weekend at his house.
Okay.
And just thankfully, as a lot of friendships die, ours hasn't, and Justin's like by far the closest thing I have to a brother. So I think we're just about at time.
I did have a question.
It's getting quite. Oh, go for it.
Yeah. So, quick question before we start to wrap things up. You've been around the block a few times. You've lived all over the place. Where's been your like favorite area to live in?
Italy.
Italy?
Because it was my last posting. and it was probably one of the best places to live, and to work for NATO was it just topped everything off completely. However, in a heartbeat, if I could now, in a heartbeat, I'd move back to Kenya in a heartbeat. One, because the weather's either going to be sunny or it's going to be rainy. In the UK, you wait 10 minutes and the weather is just going to change.
Yeah.
I would say it's been raining here the entire time I've been here. I've been here for like a week now, and it's just been not nonstop rain, but it's rained every day.
But Italy, 100%. I just thought it was just an amazing place to be.
That's so funny, just because like my wife and I do really love Italy. We're gonna be really sad to move, but we've had just a different experience. I think even my experience working with NATO, I did a NATO exercise last year, where I was like our office's like liaison. I was the direct representation for my captain to make sure our wishes were being represented appropriately. And that quickly turned into me being like my captain, which was is absolute shit show, you know. The working with Germans, man, just
by working with 29 different other countries.
Yeah, it just just the Germans are always just seem to be the worst, you know.
Listen, we love Germans on this podcast. There's no
yes.
There's no racism here. Our German friends.
No, none. I say this as, you know, I sit like mostly German myself, but there's something about.
See, I like the way you threw that in there. Then you know, just to calm everything down.
Yeah, just calm it down.
It's self-loathing.
Yeah, there's something about it. It's just like maybe you've had different experience, and I've had friends, German friends. Lovely, we have German family members, obviously, but it's just the German military I worked with were just always very pushy, very stickler, and just took things way too seriously, you know. It just it's like walking German stereotypes, you know. It's just like there's no give. They're just not the same of any other country in NATO, you know. I mean, as a whole, I would say a lot of the other people are more calm, laid back, or more just like, well, you know, it'll work itself out, you know, mindset. And or like big thing was like the guy just kept asking for what the US considered to be classified information, you know. And I'm like, I'm not telling you this. and he was getting all mad, and like he's like, I'm gonna have to go to the admiral and say that you're like the United States is unwilling to give us this information. And I'm like, all right, cool.
He's being a Karen. He was just like, I'm gonna talk to your manager.
And I'm like, if you really want to have that conversation, like that's fine, you know. And I'm gonna tell the admiral the same thing I'm telling you. Like I'm not going to jail. You know, like if the admiral wants to talk to a general and the general decides he wants to give that information, great. That's the general can do that. Yeah, I'm gonna tell you, you will never receive that information out of me. You know, and we were on a call, and the general did, you know, give the information, and then I was like, you got to be joking. Like he wasn't supposed to. And now everyone was like, well, the general already told us, so you know, you can tell us now tomorrow. And I'm like, it's not how this works, guys. Like it's not how this works. And as a whole, I had a miserable time. It was in Portugal too, of all places. Portugal, beautiful.
Yeah, beautiful.
I'm sure you've been to the Strike Force NATO headquarters. Yeah. You know, the building itself leaves a bit to be desired, but they're in probably one of the most beautiful places on the planet. You know, like it's like the headquarters building is looking out over the ocean. Yeah, it's an immaculate view of some cliffs. There's like a university, and it's not even a 10-minute drive from like beautiful beaches. Yeah. Man, I could just rant all day about that.
This is going to turn into Veterans Anonymous.
I right. I was gonna say so far, actually, we've only had guests on
Yeah,
that
I was gonna
were
just say that.
veterans. Yeah, it was just funny.
We just have a bunch of
Um,
military friends.
yeah, it's how it is.
But we do have a
Um,
question that we like to ask our guests, and you have a range of age for your children, so we'll just go with the youngest here.
Yeah.
With your youngest daughter, what's been your favorite memory over the last 5 or so years? Or
I think
just
with
one that
Esme,
sticks out?
one that sticks out. Her first, when she took her first 10 steps, it was the most exciting thing to see her do. It wasn't the one step. It was, we watched her count and count. We watched 10 steps, and we were getting so excited, and the big beam on her face because she
Yeah.
was doing it was just, it was absolutely amazing. It really was.
I
And we
can't
got that
wait.
all on video.
Aw. We're getting
Got
close.
every word of it.
We're getting close. Olive, my daughter, she's almost 11 months old, and she's standing on everything. She's starting to stand up a little bit without holding on to anything. And I feel like in the next month or so, she's going to be there.
Yeah.
And I'm terrified, but I'm excited.
I was gonna say, like, Rain's pulling herself up, and she's starting to shuffle along something that she's holding on. Yeah, if you were seeing it earlier, she's getting into everything. But man, I'm just like, I'm excited because obviously I want my daughter to grow up, but at the same time, she's already
Slow
growing
down.
fast.
Yeah.
She's getting into everything, and just now, like, as soon as she started running around on top of that, you know,
The thing is, once they take their first few steps and everything, you'll be looking there, and you'll just talk to someone, and the next minute they're going to be over there.
Yeah,
and it's like, oh my god, I didn't know you could move that fast.
You can teleport? Yeah.
slow down.
Just today we were sitting in her playpen like an hour before we got into this, and she was like, she's climbing all on top of me, standing all over me, and she goes in, and you know how babies do the open mouth kiss. They're she gets my nose and she like bites on it a little bit, and I go, ow, and she starts laughing, and so she spends the next 5 minutes just going in and biting my nose, and she's just cracking up the whole time. And just her mind is starting to get to the point where she's like, oh, this gets a reaction. So she continues to like do it. And it's the greatest. I'm loving it.
Yeah, it's the most amazing thing when they're that age. It's just it's so much new stuff. There's obviously my daughter's like 6, coming up to 6 in September, and she's 6 going on 16. Yeah, she wants everything now. Everything.
Like, same thing with Rain. She does bite a bit, but her favorite thing is to stick her finger in my mouth and like either have me like suck or blow on it. And like if I blow a raspberry on her finger, like the way she laughs, it's just like it's the best thing.
Does she try and put her finger in your nose?
Not necessarily intentionally.
Olive
she really
does.
wants it in the mouth.
Olive does intentionally. She goes for the nose, and
I wonder what's up there.
it's pretty funny. Pete,
Yeah,
do you golf?
Rain really-
No, I play a mean crazy golf.
That's miniature golf, I assume.
Kind of, or pitch and putt.
But I've got a question for you then. So why do dads take an extra pair of socks when they go golfing?
I could answer that in a really good way, and I could.
In case they get a hole in one.
So that's good. That's good.
Tradition, we have to end each episode with a dad joke, and some of them have been better than others.
No,
So I got one for you, Pete. I don't know if you'll you might already know it. I feel it's a pretty common one. But do you know why Native Americans came to America first? Because they had reservations.
Oh.
Gee. All right, well, we're coming up to the end here for episode number 5. Is there anything we want to close out with, Pete? Anything you want to share with us before we call it a night?
You're working on? Or
yes. So apart from that, the other, I have written another book. I'm waiting to finalize, put certain parts on it, and then get it sent off to my publisher. But this is an adult one. It's an adult thriller.
Oh,
so there we go.
Okay, I love thrillers. I love novels.
Yeah,
so
it's called Stalked.
Stalked?
So it's an adult thriller. So it's been written. I just got to get covers done for it, and have it typed up and printed, and then sent to my publishers. So
Awesome.
But as a closing thing for you guys, anyone that has girls, little girls and boys and anything like that, spend as much time as you can with them. Be there for them as much as you can. We have limited time on this planet, and just be there. Don't let anyone stop you. Don't let anyone get in your way. Just love them, because it'll mean a lot to them. And if you miss out, it's horrible.
Can't take
It
it
really is.
back.
I've been there. Yeah.
All right. Well, on that note, I'm gonna go spend some time with my daughter. We're gonna go to the store because we're out of formula. Well, we're running out.
Oh,
We've got enough to get us through the night, but the week we will not make it. But thank you so much, Pete, for joining us. It was a pleasure talking to you. Our second guest, another veteran and another author. Both of our guests have been veterans and authors. So
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
we've got some
it's a
interesting
trend.
friends. Yeah, it's a trend. So we'll see what happens next time. But thanks everybody for listening. Thanks everybody for watching.
No,
If you're watching on YouTube, drop a like, drop a comment, subscribe for the future episodes. If you're on the podcast apps, leave 5 stars, leave a review, come back for more. We appreciate anybody who checks us out past the first 30 seconds. Thank you guys.
thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Bye.
bye.
Bye.